All right, here we go. All right, so I'm sure you were wondering, how do I even get a child in my groups? So I have access to a lot of data. I will pull EOG scores from the previous year, interim benchmark assessments, NWEA MAP assessments. I'll talk to their current teacher, maybe even if it's the beginning of the year, a previous teacher. And then once I get my list, I will assess each student on phonics and fluency so that I can get a better idea of how to organize my groups. When I schedule my groups, I very much meet with the teachers and pull them out at the best time humanly possible where they're not going to miss very much and they're not going to have things to make up. A lot of time it's just during their silent reading time, or maybe first thing in the morning. I have one group, it's at 7:15 in the morning. So I have one group that wants to come during lunch. So it's pretty flexible. Groups can change as students grow. Sometimes the needs change, and so the groups will change. And you might even have a child that just all of a sudden takes off and they don't need this group anymore. And then I have two that are coming in starting yesterday. So pretty fluid. When the kids first come to me, first thing, we start by reviewing things that we have done in the past. So I did a little assessment on them last week on everything that we have done so far this year, all of the sounds, all of the skills. And so then I have each child's individual needs so that that group just works on those needs. So it might be something like just write what makes the sh sound or what makes the eh sound. So they know these things. They know 3 ways to make the sound. And then after that, we move into whatever our new skill is. So for example, this week is adding vowel suffixes to closed syllable words, which are like vowel consonant or consonant vowel consonant, or adding a vowel suffix to a vowel consonant E or magic E. And what are the tricks for doubling, not doubling, dropping the E or not dropping the E? So here we might have talked about write the word cap. Now add E, what do I have? Going from Jack to Jake and understanding why you can't just drop that E because it has to be a CK at the end. And they know all those tricks. Adding different suffixes. So for every skill that I have, and I don't know how familiar you guys are, but there used to be a program called Foundations, and it was the best program ever for teaching kids phonics. And they were the best readers, writers, and spellers ever. So of course they got rid of that, but I don't have to. I can pretty much do whatever I think is best. And so I have made a list of every single thing we've done. So we're probably on list 10 or 11 of skills that we have done so far this year. We're at the same point this year that I was at the end of the year last year. So if your child was with me both years, they're learning something brand new that we did not get to last year. I'll often have the kids read the words on the spelling list because, yes, can they spell them? That's great, but I need them to read them worse than anything. But they need to realize that, like, hopping has 2 P's and hoping has 1, and this is why. So when you're reading and you see the 2 P's, then you know that that's hopping, and trying to get them to make those connections. I will combine different skills, different syllable types. So like they know that this is a closed syllable, this is a vowel consonant E, they know this is a closed syllable, this is a bossy R or R controlled, so that we can continue to just mix it up as much as possible. And then the last thing I do is make nonsense words. So they were tested, and I probably had 20 different nonsense words, all the way to the point that there were some that were 3 to 4 syllables plus a suffix. And they did amazing. They know where to divide words. They know what they need to do in order to sound them out, so that now when they come to a word that they don't know, they can use those skills to sound those words out. So after we finish the phonics section, which is probably about a third of our time, and I see them about 40 minutes twice a week, we do the comprehension part. So we have spent the first half of the year hardcore talking about What is this question asking? What are some possible answers? Why did the author write that? How do you narrow down choices? What are tricks for figuring out answers? What does inference even mean? And so now we're moving into passages with questions, much more independent, underlining, doing things that they have to do on paper, but they don't necessarily do online. Online, there's ways for them to highlight. They just don't tend to do it as much. And so I'm really forcing them to do it with me. So hopefully they'll use those skills and I can narrow down some weaknesses that they have. And then I found this great site called Edulastic. And on that site, I can figure out, I was told main idea, tough time with main idea. So I just went and found different activities and passages with main idea. And then we worked on those, like it might be 10 questions all on main idea. And then during that time while they're on the computer, I can see in real time what they're doing. So before they submit, I can say, I need you to double check 5 and 8. And a lot of times immediately they'll go right to the other answer that's correct. So we talk about, well, why is this one correct? This one's not. They're having trouble tracking as they're reading. Graphic Novels has done a great job of getting kids back into reading, but since they don't have real normal paragraphs, they're missing lines in their reading. And there's actually a button that they can click on that just frames out one line at a time. So just showing them, you need to use this button. You need to, and this screen is too small. This is how you enlarge it. You need to enlarge it. Just little tips on how to best use what they have in order to be as successful as possible. So at home, a couple things that you can do is practice reading and spelling the words on the spelling lists. They just need just a little bit, even if it's just 2 or 3 minutes a day, pick a list and just do a couple words. Reading with your child as much as possible, because what's happening is, go read for 30 minutes and then they get in their room or wherever it is that they read and we're not sure what book are they reading. Is it too easy? Are they coming to you saying, what does this word mean? Or what does this mean? Probably not. So they're not getting that benefit of that one-on-one help. And I'm going to jump down here and really quick. So as they're reading, you can be asking them questions. So don't make it that they hate sitting down and reading with you. You could even read to them. But just asking them a simple question is, why do you think they did that? Why did the author do that? Just a little bit. So as you're reading, you ask them, what does that word mean? Is there anything that you'll be surprised at words that they don't know? Like I have been surprised when I've come across a word and I thought, wow, not one single one of my 45 kids knew what the word fond was. It talked about he was fond of something. So I even had one child who asked me one day, what is a mane? Like a lion's mane. And I thought, wow, okay. I'm assuming a little too much. And so I wouldn't do it with every word, just every once in a while. What do you think that was? But what really prompted, honestly, this whole entire thing, and I'm getting something that says my internet connection is unstable. So if we go out, I will just send you the copy from this morning. I went into classroom to pull kids and I found that I'm walking through and the books I'm looking at, I'm thinking, these are too easy. They're way too easy. And then the teachers are coming to me saying, they did horrible on the vocabulary part of the test. And I'm like, well, that's because they're not being exposed to difficult enough vocabulary. So then I thought, I'm going to dig a little deeper. And so I went and got all of the EOG scores and said, what is the lowest possible level you can be reading to pass the 4th grade EOG, to pass the 5th grade EOG? So for 4th grade, that is 840. And you don't have to worry about what that means. It's just that's the Lexile, the level of difficulty. So then I thought, I'm going to have them bring their books in and we're going to see where they are. So I went to lexile.com. I type in the title, and every once in a while you got to put an author because the title doesn't come up. And these kids are reading level 400 books, level 500 books. Well, they're not being exposed to vocabulary difficult enough for them to work their way through it or ask somebody. And so these tests and things come up and they're just not ready. So I do have a bunch of books in here from the old reading program. And so a lot of them were like, well, I can't find anything or I this. So I'm like, let's go look. I mean, I've got 8 bins that are purple. So purple is about 5th grade. So they can go over there at any point in time and pull a book. They can take it back to the room. They can take it home. They can swap it out if they don't like it. They can swap it out when they finish it. But just trying to show them, okay, your book's a little bit too easy. And I even had one said, well, mine's an 1100. I'm like, he said, that's probably why I don't understand half the words in the book. Might be. And then some of them are struggling in fluency. And the goal for fluency at the end of 4th grade is 125 words per minute, 5th grade, 137. And the reason I even work on fluency is because the makers of these tests say, well, if a kid's supposed to be reading 137 words per minute, then that's how I'm going to organize this test. And so your child comes in and is reading 70 words per minute. Well, now it's going to take them twice as long to read every passage. Let's say there's 6 passages. By the time they get toward the end, they're tired. So just any way that we can increase that fluency is just going to be a help to them. Are we going to get it from 70 to 137? Probably not. But if we can get it from 70 to 90, that's a huge improvement. And maybe they can make that one more passage. So if they need help in fluency, I've found some passages that you can use. And what you'll do is you'll just set your timer for a minute and you'll just tell them read as quickly as you can, but not so fast that you make too many mistakes. You just want to see how quickly they can read. Some of them will be like challenge accepted and they're like rattling off words and you have to stop and say, slow down, you're making too many mistakes. But there will be times that I'll say, can you read a little quicker? Just to see what they can do. So if they start reading and they're like, one afternoon, Claude, well, I'm going to write that down on a Post-it so I can go back and mark it on their passage. They say ballet, which most of them will underline it. If they said slipper, I'm going to circle that. So I'm going to write notes on my Post-it to the side unless you make a separate copy for yourself. Oops, sorry. When they come to a word and they're struggling with it and they just can't figure out the word, don't let too much time pass because, you know, honestly, maybe that is not a word that is so super important that they need to spend all that time figuring it out. I just tell them, keep on going. At the end of the minute, I will kind of put this little symbol to show, okay, that was the end of my 1 minute. I'll let them finish the sentence. So 72 words in a minute. This was just something I did. So most passages should be able to be about a 2-minute passage. So I might sit down and say, let's do another minute and let them just keep on going. Or I might say, let's finish this up another day. Who knows? But if you can do 2 a week, that's going to change things. Even if the children can accomplish 2 more words every week, and you have all of February, March, April, and half of May, I mean, that's a huge improvement for them. These are the question stems that I was talking about. So basically just samples of questions that you can give them. So RL just means it's literature. There'll also be an RI, which is informational. So this is 5th grade. And it might just be as simple as, you know, why did the author write this? A lot of it, if you can just say, prove it. Go into the text and prove your answer to me. Who is the most important character? Why? Why is this quote important to them? Why is it the best evidence to show that Johnny is a bully? Anything that you ask them can be helpful. So when they come to words they don't know, they do have a lot of strategies, but we're still working on them. So as simple as sometimes if I just cover up that suffix, they get it immediately. So they're learning to do that as well. Showing them this has the word and in it. So just we're working on that more and more because now that we've got a lot of skills under our belt, they're just getting better at it. Tell them to divide the word. They know possible places to divide it. They know, okay, between these 2 consonants, they know I can't divide SH. Some of them say, let me write it down. And they write it down and they just start dividing. And so I'm like, you know, that piece of paper they give you during testing, during reading, and you're like, I don't understand why I have it. That's why. Tell them what would make sense. Tell them, let's start the sentence again. Figure it out. And then does that look right? You know, and if they're reading bike instead of bicycle, you know, they know what that word is. Don't pick that word, but just maybe at the end of every day say, okay, what does that word mean? What do you think? Let me help you figure it out. So let's go back at that word you missed and let's figure it out. Okay. So I know that finding materials is not easy because you don't know what is an appropriate level. And sometimes you might look up something 5th grade and I look at it and think, that's more 3rd grade. And so I did some searching and found this book on Amazon, 180 Days of Reading. So if you want to type it in, you would just type in 180 Days of Reading. Well, all of you are 5th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade, whatever. It goes up several years, but it's 180 reading passages with questions. And I personally, if I'm just working on comprehension, I'm skipping the grammar things. I'm skipping the what is this prefix. I'm skipping the things that have to do with writing because I really just want them to take that 10 to 15 minutes to work on that passage. And then for you, you've pulled those answers out of the back and all you have to do is grade it. Now, if they say, I can't figure out why this is D, and you're like, I can't figure out why this is D either, go ask Mrs. Pritchett. Yeah, send it in. I don't mind. Any of those are perfectly fine. Or send me an email or send me a picture or whatever. So you have the option of getting a green folder. So in the green folder, we will have all the spelling lists that we've worked on so far, the question stems, and the fluency passages if needed. So if you are interested in those, just send me a quick email and I will get them ready for you. I don't want to do it for all 45 kids who are not going to use it. And I think that is it as far as my PowerPoint. Do you guys have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Are we gonna get like some sort of like progress report on like where they're at, like a Lexile level, like a current Lexile level, or where they're at? I know.
Yeah,
I don't see any of that. I don't know, like, I don't know where he is.
right.
That's a fair statement.
I think the NWEA or the MAP has a Lexile level, but I will double check that.
Okay.
Um,
And will those come home like with the report card?
I'm not sure. I've never given a MAP test. I don't even know honestly what it looks like.
Yeah, because I feel like we used to get, at least I feel like I used to see from, and I don't know, Amy, if this is just, I got it for Noah or if it's something that you get, but like sometimes with report cards, we would get sort of charts on like where they were at, where they landed, where, and I don't feel like I've seen any of that.
Okay, I can ask. I know that there is a parent report because I have seen those and it shows you growth. I'll look and see if Lexile is on that and see what we can do. What I would do too possibly is just pick up a book that he's reading, look on Lexile.com and see where it is. And then, you know, maybe pick up a more difficult book and see where that is and just see. I honestly would say 98% of my kids do not need me for reading, like actual reading. They need me for comprehension and they need me for figuring out words that they don't know. So their actual reading ability for most of them is right on target. And it's just the understanding. Like, for example, this is My Father's Dragon. The readability is super easy, but there's one part in there that says, to summon dragon, yank the crank, report disorderly conduct to gorilla. Well, first I'm like, what does it mean to summon? If he's going to summon the dragon. Okay, they figured that out. Disorderly conduct, 1. Person knew what that was. And so even though they can read it, can they understand what's being asked?
Got it.
And so even like this is just a picture book. And it's not that difficult to read, but in the first page, that's just very short, there's probably 8 things that I could ask them that they probably don't know. They can read his hand and a baseball were a perfect match, but do they know what that means? So that's more where the difficulty is going to come in, is not necessarily the reading it, it's just that little bit of vocabulary that comes in there. So I'd just throw some books on Lexile.com, see what they come up with, and then see what he can do.
Sounds good.
I had a question.
Yes.
So at the beginning, you were talking about, I guess, the testing where they could, Jordan, one of her main problems is, like you said, kind of missing lines when she's reading. Like you were talking about with the graphic novels, how, because she'll be reading a passage and I'm like, but you just totally missed that whole
Right.
2 or 3 lines.
Yes.
And you were saying something about how, I guess on the computer, they can actually frame it. Is that what you were saying? So
Yes.
is that going to be on the EOG? Is that?
Okay. I don't remember what the EOG looked like. I did administer it last year, but I cannot remember what it looked like. It is, and it's not on the benchmark. It is on the NWEA. And so it literally is just a little thing that looks like lines. And if you click it, it will frame it as it goes. So you know what? I'm thinking that the EOG had it because they have to go through like a little, like a test prep video that they have to watch. And I'm pretty sure that was on there. But, you know, I'm the type who's going to be like, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to watch this video together and we're going to click on all these buttons and that font's really small. How do we make it larger? And I'm not sure what's happening in the classroom. So I only did the video with the kids that I tested. So there weren't very many, maybe 5 of them. And so I will hunt down, I've requested that it has been put on benchmarks, but it's probably with Gmail.
Okay, because I just know that's one thing that I could really, because like as we're doing reading passages, it's hard when we're doing it on the computer, like the read works and everything. Because I'm like, I can't. I mean, I can use my hand and like cover it up, but it's harder for them not having. Like when I'm reading an actual book with her, I can kind of. She uses her hand kind of to go through.
Well, they do make these bookmarks that have like a little bit of like film. Like this, and like this frames it as it goes. Now I will say, I got this at the dollar store and could not find them. I looked, but some of them come with this being a different color. So it's really interesting how some of them look at this and they go, oh no, because it's yellow. And then they pull up the blue and they're like, oh yeah. But even if you've got a regular bookmark that she tracked, then when it comes to the test, she can take her notebook paper and use that as her bookmark because they get paper every single time. And I'm like, let's talk about what this paper's for because I know they look at it. I'm not working out any math problems. I don't know what I'd use this for. But it's hard because when the screen is touch screen and you touch something accidentally as you're trying to track and then it just locks out or it goes haywire, then they stop doing it. I wish it would not be touch, honestly. I wish that they had to use the mouse for everything or the little pad for everything because then it would allow them to use their finger and track as they go.
Right. Because I messed this up one day doing that because I was like, well, let's do it with my finger on the computer. And it was like, oh, I forgot it's touch screen.
I know. I've even asked for them to be able to use those pens that have the tip that allows them to click on answers. And just to try to, you know, because then they can use the other side to kind of track with, but they do have a pencil, so they probably could just kind of track with that. Even just little tricks like that, just showing them if they'll just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. Well, that's,
but
that's good to know that I can kind of talk to her about that. So,
yeah, it's very common. I would say probably 30% of them consistently miss a line when we're reading. And even if they just put their finger,
I never even thought about the graphic novels causing problems with that, but I can see that now.
Yeah. And if they're reading a graphic novel, I'll say, and if they're reading a book that's at a 300 level, I'm like, that is fun. Read a book that you love, read that graphic novel, but pull one of these more difficult ones too. Read them both at the same time. Read one at school and one at home, you know. I'm not saying take away your book that you love. I'm just saying, let's bump up the difficulty as well. Any more questions?
I have a quick one.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions for how to get them to slow down? Because I think Eli rushes
Mhm.
to be done. And I'll be like, stop, back it up. And then he'll stop and slow down and reread it. And I keep I'm telling him, you have to slow down. If you slow down, you get it right. And
Right.
I think that probably has an impact on gotta impact comprehension because he's saying the wrong word entirely.
Right.
Half
And
the time.
what I do, and again, I know that NWEA, and they'll even tell me, like, they were like, it got hard. So as they get a question correct, we've got 10 more minutes, it'll bump them up to more difficult. So I'm not even sure what it looks like, but I will tell them, I'm like, you kind of need to watch the clock because each passage should be at least 10 minutes. If you're finishing that passage in more than 10 minutes, you're moving too fast. Because just think about it, if it's 6 passages and you have finished all 40 of those questions in an hour, you've moved too quick. So even just telling him, setting a timer and getting him used to slowing down enough that he has to take his time to do that. But also some kids actually have accommodations to read out loud to themselves. So if he kind of just moved his mouth while he was reading, he would catch his mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll work on that.
Okay.
More.
Along with everything else, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Add it to the list.
And then have a life and as well. Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you coming and hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank
Thank you.
I love it. It is the dream job. I honestly, they're like, do you have a good day? I said, every day is a good day.
Oh, good.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.